All right, so today I wanted to start by talking a little bit about vaccines. It's kind of a hot topic, over the last 6 months or so, for obvious reasons. And you have multiple companies that are apparently close to getting a vaccine. But again, I don't really believe that. I think that it's even. It all depends. Like what one person's definition of safe is completely different than another person's definition. I'm sure there is people that would gladly inject those 90% quote unquote safe vaccines happily, and then there's people that wouldn't inject them no matter what. Um, Now again, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, but I think it's closer to one end, and I'll get into that. But as far as whether it should or shouldn't it be forced, and this is another hot topic. And then I think for starters, it's very obvious that people who want it to be forced are absolutely insane. And again, if anything, that's putting it lightly. And that again, no, for starters, if you get the vaccine, let's just say, like, I don't know, if the majority of people have the vaccine, then why in this is something that, we never really make sense about the people that, that want everybody to take the vaccine. Again, if you have it, then you're supposed to be immune, right? Like you're supposed to be immune. So if you have it, then why are you worried about other people not having it? Right? Like why are you worried about other people not having it? Now again, one of the arguments they'll come up with, oh, if you get sick, then you have to pay for your own health care. Well, no, that's complete BS. We never do, we don't do that for any other way. We don't force the guy who smokes a pack a day to pay for his own health care, which is I think a lot more good of an argument. Um, but again, that's a complete stupid argument. But again, the thing that I've brought up before, and again, Mike Cernovich points out here, government won't force you to take the vaccine. Amazon will, airlines will, banks will. You won't be able to buy, sell, or trade without the vaccine. Now, again, that's how it's going to be done because, again, the government, um, they've gone away from the old style tactic of doing this kind of stuff, which is literally, take it or we're going to put a gun to your head and force you to take it or to throw you in jail, one or the two, one or the other. They've kind of gone away from that. They've recognized that people are very skeptical of that, so they've gone towards the more intelligent ways of doing it, at least from their perspective, and that they've kind of thought of rather than forcing people at the point of a gun to do our sinister things, we're going to just simply convince them that it's in their best interest. And for the people that still don't go along with it, we're going to ostracize them to the point to where many of them will take it, and the ones who don't will be completely ostracized from society. And it's very funny. Again, the first thing I always point out with this is it's very funny. People always consider. That's basically how you would run society. Again, in a completely different way. It's in a completely different way, but it is similar in some ways in that a society without a government would use ostracism. Again, the only difference being is that there's no government, which means there is a massive difference. But again, people scoff at that and think that it would never work. But yeah, when it when it comes to this, they think it would work just fine. So again, it just goes to show just how low information the average person is. But again, that's how they're going to do it. Again, it'll probably start out fairly subtle too. It'll start out fairly subtle that, again, the same thing that goes with the whole masks things. Again, oh, it's just a mask. It's just temporary. Just wear it. And then, now we're at the point to where it's going to be, wear it for at least the next 6 months. I would set the over under at probably a year and a half for how long we'll be wearing masks, and I would still probably bet the over on that. And again, now you have areas that are making you wear it outside. You have areas that are making you wear it literally in your house. Again, so the people that think, oh, it's just a mask and it's just to go in and out of buildings and all this complete, it's just an admission of just how naive the average person is. And again, calling them naive is a massive understatement. In that, again, that's how the government does things. Again, they've been doing it like this for generations, and that they recognize that, again, forcing everything down everyone's throat at once doesn't work. So how they do it is that they do it inch by inch rather than taking the whole kilometer all at once. Right? That's how they do it, and it's how it's going to work with vaccines. That's how it's going to. Again, you already have Ticketmaster floating the idea. I think that's how it'll work too. Is that there won't be any. like public institutions. Like I think it'll be more the quote unquote private business, so that they'll have that on the right wingers. Oh, they're private businesses. Don't you believe in free market and all that garbage? Even though it isn't the free market, but that's a different point in and of itself. So again, I think that's how they're going to sell it on people. They'll do that, and then I think that they'll use once they get all that done, they'll use that as an excuse to clamp down even further. So anyway, I think that's how the whole vaccine thing is going to work. And again, I think, I mean, again, speaking of the vaccine here, this is from Global News, basically saying a new poll suggests the proportion of Canadians planning to get vaccinated is on the rise after encouraging initial results from Pfizer's vaccine trial. And again, their own Twitter poll shows that it's about 50-50. 53% saying yes. So again, the idea that it's on the rise, I think, is absolutely insane. I've talked to many people who used to mock the idea of being skeptical of vaccines that say they're now. In fact, as far as my personal life goes, I've never met anyone who is against vaccines, and I know multiple people that are against vaccines. So, or at the very least, not against vaccines, against this specific vaccine, I think is a better way of putting it. And again, I think that's a lot of people. But again, the crazy thing in my mind is the people that are now against this vaccine, it's very ironic because they're against vaccines for the same reason that people have always been against vaccines. And that the big argument you hear is that, oh, I'm not taking a vaccine that's only had, a few months or 6 months tops of studies and you know, research put into it, right? I'm not going to take that. But again, the reason why people are against that's one of the main reasons why people are against vaccines, in the fact that none of the vaccines that you take as a kid, at least none that I'm aware of, have had double-blind, placebo-controlled trials done on them. They're all done comparing vaccines to other vaccines, as far as what I've seen, right? And another thing too is that vaccine companies, I think it was in the 80s, successful. I don't know what the exact how they do it in Canada, but I know in the States, um, vaccine companies have no liability, right? They have no liability. So if they make a vaccine, let's say polio, for example, you get polio or you become paralyzed from the polio vaccine, and let's just say you can prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, they have no liability, right? They have no liability. So again, if your product is 100% safe and effective, or let's just say it's like 99.99, like it's literally like one in, 100,000 or one in a million that have issues from it, then why in the world would you want immunity from any liability, right? So again, that's the thing is that the people that are against are not going to take this vaccine. They're against it for the same reason that everybody's always been against vaccines. I just find that very ironic. Now, personally, I'm not 100% against them, but I'm very skeptical. And again, I'm definitely not going to take this unless I absolutely have to. Which again, it may come to that point. And I think that'll be a tough decision, but again, the time will come, I guess, when that happens. So anyway, the next thing to bring up here is Gavin Newsom is at it again, one of the craziest governors in the states. From Clay Travis here saying California Governor Gavin Newsom violated his own state guidelines by attending a birthday party with too many guests. There was no mask mandate, or sorry, no mask wearing, no social distancing, at least from the pictures I seen. So again, I find it very funny. Like this is the thing that boggles my mind most. I mean, it kind of doesn't boggle my mind when I think full circle, but at least thinking about it from a logical perspective, and that basically all of these world leaders, in fact, the majority of them, there's probably some, but most of these world leaders don't follow their own rules, right? And let's just think about it from a logical perspective, in that if this whole virus situation is as serious as a lot of people would like us to think, then why in the world would the government not be following their rules? Like if this was like black plague, like 10% death rate, millions are going to die in the states and hundreds of thousands in Canada, and not just old people or people with severe health conditions, then like do you actually think that these government figures would be following their own rules? Like I mean, some of them probably still wouldn't, but I'm sure they would be more likely to. So again, like, how in the world? Like, this is one of the most basic ways that you know that someone's ideas are good, is that do they actually follow them? Like, would you take diet advice from someone who doesn't follow their own diet, and not only that, they do the exact opposite. Like, would you take that, like someone, let's just say someone's a vegan, someone's saying, oh, you got to do the vegan diet, the vegan diet's the greatest, and then you turn around and find out that they're a carnivore, like the exact opposite. Like, why would you listen to them? They don't even believe what they're telling you. And the same thing goes for this. Like, why in the world do we believe these people when they're not even following their own rules? Same thing goes for these public health officials. They've contradicted themselves more times than one can count. Like, why in the world are we listening to them? Now, again, many people aren't, right? Like, many people aren't, which is good, but everybody shouldn't be. Like, if everybody just said F you, or at the very least, the majority of people said F you, we wouldn't have to worry about it. Like, we wouldn't have to worry about it. Again, so it just really shocks me. And the last thing to bring up here is from Jack Posobiec. Now, again, last weekend there was the Trump, or I don't know if it was directly a Trump, it was like a mega, big rally in Washington. And again, things were good throughout the day. And then as it got later in the day, Antifa and a bunch of crazy leftists showed up. And as usual, what happens when Antifa and these leftists show up, violence ensued. And again, as usual, the mainstream media completely ignores it. Again, you know, it, there's one far right person kills someone over the last 5 years, and Trump has to denounce him a million times over, but Antifa routinely violently assaults people, has killed multiple people, and or is anyone on the left ever asked to denounce them? No, not once. Joe Biden. Not only can Joe Biden does he not denounce them, but he claims they don't even exist. Right? Like, just imagine if Trump claimed that the Proud Boys don't even exist, even though the Proud Boys aren't a crazy group like the left would have you think. Or just imagine that Trump claimed, oh, the KKK never existed, right? Just imagine how insane that he would be treated. But again, Biden does the same thing, and nobody cares. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you check out those links in the description. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to donate, you can do that as well. Again, appreciate whatever support I can get, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. Check me out on those other platforms, and stay tuned for more.